Hi everyone, I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader. It is the 1st of September, so I thought it would be a fun thing to start doing to make videos about the books being published over the course of the month that I'm most excited about reading. I'm sent a lot of advanced copies of books by publishers to review, either books that I request myself or that are sent to me unsolicited. So I want to pick out a selection of 10 books that I'm most excited about reading. I'm going to start right in with a book that's actually published today by Faber and Faber, The Lesser Bohemians by Emer McBride. Now this is her much anticipated second novel after her first novel, A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, won the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction a couple of years ago, and it was a novel that I absolutely loved. It has such a strange style that it took a while to get into it, and I actually had to read passages of it aloud before I really got into the rhythm of her strange speech. It's this sort of subconscious speech that where she mixes up sentences and grammar. Some people find it quite challenging to read, but I think Emma McBride really gets at a level of experience through this inventive use of language that we don't get in any other author. I mean, it's totally inventive and wholly her own. And I've just started reading this new book, and this book is no exception. It's written sort of in a similar style, but about a very different character and has a very different tone of voice. So this novel is about an Irish girl who moves to London in the early 90s, and it follows a year in her life and a romance she takes up with a much older actor, or an actor who's sort of twice her age, and it's her first big affair, and it's the ins and outs and complications of that love affair. So sort of the same with A Girl's a Half-Formed Thing. When I started reading this, I felt a bit alienated and confused, but after about 40 pages now, I've really gotten into the style of writing again, and I'm absolutely loving the insights and the humor and the really interesting observations she makes about psychology and romance, and so yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to finishing the novel. The next book I want to talk about is this book, Selection Day, by Aravind Adiga. This is a novel by the Booker Prize winning author who wrote The White Tiger, which was an absolutely beautiful book. His writing is really gorgeous and fascinating, so I'm very excited to read this new novel, which is, I think, about a 14-year-old boy named Manju, who is an aspiring cricket player. His older brother is a very good cricket player, and his father, I think, places expectations on him to be a sort of similar sports star, and he has trouble living up to that. And I think the story is that he befriends his brother's rival, or maybe a friend of his brother, and through that he gets a different perspective on life from the constrictive expectations of his family. So I think this sounds like a really great plot, and based on his writing before, I'm really intrigued to see what he does with this new story. So this is published by Picador, and it's a novel that I'm really excited about. Next, I want to talk about this novel Transit by Rachel Cusk, published by Jonathan Cape. And this is her follow-up novel to her novel Outline, which was, I think it was shortlisted for the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction last year, and I had read. And I really, this is a tricky book for me, and she's a tricky author for me, because I really enjoyed the experience of reading Outline. I thought there were some very funny scenes, and it was really interesting how she positioned her protagonist in that novel Outline, where she was sort of a void, which the reader, as a reader, you didn't know anything really about her. All that you learned about her was of what people said speaking to her, and she sort of takes in all the speech and all the stories that people tell her about their own lives. And I think through the way that these people react to her, you are meant to get a sense of what her personality is like, even though you don't know any of the sort of crucial details about her life or her emotional reactions. And so this novel, Transit, I think follows that same character. I've been told and read about how it follows that same character, and you find out a bit more about her life, but it I think keeps the same style. So I'm really intrigued to see what I'll make about this because while I really appreciated Outline, I found over time that my opinion of it has sort of wavered, and but a lot of people I know really rate it very highly. So very intrigued to read this new one. The next book I'm going to talk about is a author who's very close to my heart, Joyce Carol Oates, who is my favorite author, and this is a very special book that is being published by Echo Press in September. It is a nonfiction book, and it brings together some essays of Joyce's about the process of writing, and obviously she is a incredibly prolific author, and so has a lot of very good insights to make about the craft of writing. And she also has quite a few essays here on her opinions on both classic and contemporary writers. I showed in a previous video that I linked up above that this is a very special book because when I looked inside it, she had actually dedicated it to me, which is probably one of the biggest honors of my life, and I am so excited about it. And so it's going to be thrilling to go into bookstores and see this on the shelves and see my name in it. It is just such an incredible honor and tribute, and I am so touched and moved that she dedicated this book to me. So obviously I highly recommend this, but not just because it's dedicated to me, but because Joyce is a brilliant writer, and she has been a teacher all of her life, and she is a great lover of literature, and she has so many insightful, interesting things to say about contemporary literature and classic literature and the form and styles of writing. So look out for this because it is a incredibly exciting publication coming out this month. Next is a publication by Europa Editions, which is a really interesting independent press that they publish a lot of international writers and really exciting new voices. And this is called Shelter in Place by Alexander Maxick. And this isn't, this is a proof copy, so this is a very bland cover, but I'll put up a picture of the real cover up in the corner. And it sounds like a really intriguing book. It says it's set in the Pacific Northwest in the jittery, jacked up early 1990s. It's a stylish literary novel about the hereditary nature of mental illness, the fleeting intensity of youth, the obligations of family, and the dramatic consequences of love. And it, I believe, follows a teenage boy and his mother, and they discover that they have mental health conditions. It reminds me a bit of a great novel I read recently, Adam Hazlitt's novel Imagine Me Gone, which I absolutely loved. And so I'll be interested to see what this author does with that theme. Because, I think mental illness continues to be a big issue in our society. There's a lot of taboo around it. And so I think it's important that we have more stories that really address the full complexities of it in a compassionate way and the challenges that people face who suffer from them. So I'm very interested to read this. So last month I read the first volume of Riyad Sattouf's The Arab of the Future, which is a graphic memoir. And it tells the story of his life from his birth, basically, from his French mother and his Syrian father. And they move from Libya to France to Syria, and he tells the tale of their the development of their family and his father's profession. He wants to be a teacher, and the different challenges they face living under very different ideological systems and different governments under different dictatorships, because at this time when he was born and growing up, Libya and Syria were going through massive political upheavals, and so it's really interesting seeing, just from a child's perspective, his take on how these different cultures worked. And it's told in such a funny, creative, engaging way, that I just love the first volume. And so I'm really excited to see where the story picks up and what happens to his father, because his father, toward the end of the first volume, started becoming quite dark, and so I'm really concerned and interested to see what happens to him and how that impacts his growing family. Riyadh has a younger sibling too, who's just a baby, and his mother seems to be in a very precarious position. So I'm really gripped and interested to see what happens next. So I'd really recommend reading the first volume, but it's also very exciting that this second volume is finally coming out in England, and it's being published by Two Roads Press, which publishes Two Roads publishes a lot of great books. They're really quality publisher to look out for. So yeah, I'm very excited to read this, and they are very quick and easy reads. I mean, they're really intelligent and interesting, but yeah, because it's a graphic memoir, it's very fast to read, very lively, and yeah, so really highly recommend these, and excited to see what I make of the second volume. And it is part of a trilogy, so there will be a third volume too. So yeah, this is really the time to start reading Riyadh Sattouf. So the next book I'm going to talk about is also a memoir, and that is The Pigeon Tunnel by John le Carre, which is published by Viking. And also quite a political memoir, because John le Carre is obviously a very famous writer for writing government and spy thrillers, because he actually worked for the British intelligence himself, and he wrote about those experiences in books like The Constant Gardener and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And actually, I've never read him before myself, but I have seen those films, and so I have a sense of insightful take he has on these very secret government functionings and the complicated politics going on behind the surface. So I'm actually very intrigued by what his own life is like, and I know this is a really hotly anticipated memoir. I'm just sort of feel drawn and intrigued to see what he has to say about his own life and his own take on his profession and the real stories behind the characters that he created. So I'm very interested in reading this. The next book I want to talk about is one which I don't actually have a physical copy of, because I got a digital copy from NetGalley, and that is The Perfume River by Robert Owen Butler, and that is being published by Grove Press. Robert Owen Butler, I've read some of his short stories before, and he has a really unique, interesting style, like very psychologically insightful to his characters. And so I've never read a novel of his before, and this new novel is about a family during the Vietnam War, I think, living in Florida. And so I'm intrigued to see what his take on that is, because I feel like the Vietnam War is like, it's something that, it's a sort of reference point that I've experienced through a lot of like TV shows and stuff, but I feel like I never had all that much insight about what the actual experience was like in America during the time of the Vietnam War. There was a lot of resistance to it by some people, and then other people really supported it. Like all wars, there's that sort of internal conflict in a country about what to do, and so it'll be very interesting to see what his take is, just filtered through the perspective of one family. So I'm very excited to read this novel by him. The next book I want to talk about is a non-fiction book, and it's called Another Day in the Death of America by Gary Young, and it's been published by Faber. And this seems like a really important book because the author, who's a journalist, I believe, just takes a day in the life of America and talks about the stories of 10 children who are killed as a result of gun violence. And these are stories of children who their deaths weren't widely reported because gun violence is such a massive issue in America, as we all know from recent news, which seems just like never-ending stories about children who die through gun violence, through accidents, or from maniacs who decide to go on a killing spree. And it is such a massive, harsh issue. So I think this book will take you inside the actual experiences of what happens to the families of children who die through gun violence. So I'll just read a little bit. The day he selects is Saturday, November 23rd, 2003. It was just another day in America, an unremarkable Saturday like any other, on which 10 children and teens were killed by gunfire. The youngest was 9, the oldest was 19. White, black, and Latino, they fell in suburbs, hamlets, and ghettos. None made the national news. There was no outrage about their passing. It was just another day in the death of America, where on daily average 7 children and teens are killed by guns. And that is just a shocking number. I think this book is really important in addressing this issue, raising awareness of it, and because it's something we need to constantly be reminded of in making reforms about gun control and really understanding the full impact, the personal impact that this violence has every day. And finally, the last book I want to talk about is a novel which I am so excited about because it is by Donald Ryan, who is an absolutely beautiful writer. I've read 2 of his books, his novel The Thing About December, and last year I read his new book of short stories called A Slanting of the Sun. These stories were so beautiful and fascinating, and it was probably one of my favorite books of the year, and I was really surprised that it didn't seem to be covered all that much, because his writing is just absolutely tremendous, and so I think his stories really deserve more attention. But this is a novel, and it's a brief novel, and it's going to be published by Doubleday. I'll read the blurb on the back to give you an idea of what it's about. Melody She is alone and in trouble. Her husband doesn't take the news of her pregnancy too well. She doesn't want to tell her father yet because he's a good man, and this could break him. She's trying to stay in the moment, but the future is looming, larger by the day, while the past won't let her go. What she did to Breedy Flynn all those years ago still haunts her. And I think that's something that Donald Ryan does really well. He packs all this history and past into his characters, the things that happen in their daily lives. And so I think he's great at sort of building these like complex psychological layers to his characters. And yeah, he is a really great writer, and probably one of like the greatest in Ireland at the moment. And that is really saying something because there are so many great Irish authors at the moment. So yes, this is one that I'm really, really, really looking forward to. So that is my selection of 10 books that I am massively excited about reading this month. But what do you have on your shelves? What are you looking forward to that's been published, that's coming out? Let me know. I really enjoy staying on top of what's coming out and what people are reading that's new that they're most excited about. So if you want to see more about new books that are coming out and new books that I'm excited about, please subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you for watching.